Welcome back to Your Breakthrough the podcast, where we help you navigate your mind and life with triumph and grace. Today's special guest is Abundance Mentor Raechelle Minney. She shares with us today how any mindset can be set free from poverty if you're willing to do the work. Enjoy the listen.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for coming back to our podcast. As you know, this week we're talking about mental health for women and what can be helped in everyone's journey, because everyone's journey is different. And today we have the fabulous abundance mentor, Raechelle Minney. So, Miss Raechelle, just to kick off everything, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? What are your passions and pretty much in your professional life and your personal endeavors?
Yeah. So a little kind of history for my professional life. I was in finance for 17 years as a financial planner. I basically quit my corporate job to go travel. And so traveled for about 2 years. Got certified in NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy to start using those modalities to merge it with money and finances to help women with their money mindset. So that
Fantastic.
kind of evolved. My passion at this point is really getting more integrated into how do we match what people want with their passion with money and then actually put it together to like implement, right? So like for myself, it's more about like, okay, how do I build wealth at this point? Like I've, got my cash flow figured out and all of that, but how do I really expand it into more?
Yes, exactly.
And as I've been traveling and sitting with like that contemplative question, it just keeps hitting my soul to, um, it's going to sound audacious, but like become a billionaire. Like, what would it take to become a billionaire? And I've been playing with
Exactly.
it and just be silly with it. And I looked at like stats around it. Rihanna's a billionaire and it took her 20 years. I'm like, if Rihanna can do it, like, couldn't we all do it really? Like,
Exactly. That
looking
is
at where she
true.
came from. So it's kind of just like this fun, playful thing. I have a private podcast I do on this notion that I'm going to become a billionaire. I'm going to do all the behind the scenes of how I get there. And, even if I get halfway
Wow.
there, then so be it.
The money mindset is so great. So, with your money mindset, how significant with your mental health do you think that was, that brought that into that? What turned you into the money mentor that you are now?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, right? And to tie it into kind of mental health, it is such a detrimental thing that we can't get consumed with if we're not
Hmm.
careful, right? And so I think pulling people out of that stuck place is really important. And how to do that is really powerful for yourself. Like if you can get to
Hmm.
a point of really noticing and being aware of like, okay, I'm not in a good place mentally with money. How do I shift my focus? I have tools I can talk about around that. But then getting to this place of neutrality with money is honestly where I hope most people can get to because we can start from neutral, we can get excited, we can really like expand and amplify what is possible with money when we feel
Mm,
neutral about it as a tool, right? Because it's not becoming a billionaire, like that sounds fun and everything, but it's really like what can I do with that? How can
that's
I
so true.
influence? How can I impact? How can I channel that money to the causes that are aligned with my value system.
That is so awesome. So for in that same vein, can you recall, I guess, a specific moment, I guess, that brought you to this, that I guess triggered you wanting to be in this realm?
Yeah, I think probably when I was 18, 19, I knew I always liked to be in the essence of money.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is my father was an entrepreneur. Like I always liked talking about money with him. I never felt limited by money, which I
Hmm.
realized very quickly was unusual because most people, don't feel that way.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I feel like there was these moments specifically where I was like realizing, oh, I would be really good at doing things with money, whatever that might have meant at the time. And I
Hmm.
had an opportunity to work for an investment company at a very young age, like most 19-year-old, especially women, aren't working at investment companies.
Hmm.
But the opportunity presented itself, and it was like, yeah, I feel like I want to learn more about this. I would be good at it. And so I just kind of evolved it from there and became, very successful in the industry when I worked in it. But yeah, it
That's
was quite
good.
an interesting journey. Yeah.
That is so awesome. So, in your opinion, what are the gaps and challenges, I guess, that women face regarding their mental health and their health regarding money?
Mm. Yeah, I was just talking with a group of ladies about this today, and what was interesting that came up is how much we sit in lack, like not
Mm,
enoughness, and that conversation,
exactly.
whether it's with money or our bodies, or there's so many angles to it, but the not enoughness conversation, um, if we can simply be aware of it, we can start to unravel it and recognize how much that isn't true. That's not the truth, right?
That is
And
so.
so, from
Mhm.
like a mental health standpoint, it feels like if we could at least become more aware of when that is looping in our brain, we can
Mhm.
start to shift and get out of it and start to tell ourselves things more um, positively that lean in the direction of, again, neutrality, but also wholeness and just we are enough, I have enough, everything is enough.
That is so true. So do you have, well, seeing as you said you didn't have any strong, I guess, things pulling you down when it came to money when you were, coming up. So do you, when anxiety or fear comes to you, do you have anything that comes to you regarding money or finances or anything like that?
Yeah, and I feel like mine is more around like the notion of talking about money, communicating about
Mm,
it, because just having the experience that I have, like obviously when approached, that is easiest to just obviously share, guide people, teach people, but to be known and seen as that feels scary and audacious. And prime example, literally yesterday, I was working with a group of people, about 20 people. We are working on our vision statements, and I decide to really like proclaim, like, yes, I want to become a billionaire, right? Like, I've had this
hmm
idea for a long time, like over a year. And then I decided just on a whim, like, yep, I'm just going to tell everyone this thing. And so there's a big fear inside of me of like, ooh, what are people going to think of me? How are they going to
hmm
feel? Like, that
Exactly.
is a huge fear, right? And that's all made up in my own mind. Once I said the things and we went through the process and the shock factor existed, the aftermath of that is never as bad as we think it is. And so in my mind, it was like, oh, people are gonna do whatever that I thought.
hmm
My brain is like, no, they actually were really inspired because it was more, defined around my why. But yeah, there's definitely fears that come up. I'd say out of any emotion, fear is probably the one that I experience the most, even with money, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, even if you feel a good foundation, there's
Yeah.
always that layer of not enough conversation that you're
hmm
constantly learning how to mitigate at every level. And
That's true.
so as I talk to wealthy people over the years, it's like that's the one thing I want to learn now before I am a billionaire, so that, when we get there, it's like, okay, I've already integrated that at a level of which now I'm clear, what I need to do to make sure that that fear doesn't hold me back.
That is so good. So what led you, I guess, to discover the techniques for yourself? And I guess how have they impacted your life?
Yeah.
What are your
Uh,
favorite ones?
I think NLP is probably my favorite. NLP is neuro linguistic programming. So it's just basically using certain protocols to observe, release, and then reframe kind of your
Mhm.
thinking. And that's kind of it at a basic level. But being able to use those tools on myself and empower
Mhm.
myself to do that is really fun because now I don't have to go to a coach or an expert to do it. I can do it for myself.
Exactly. That's
And
important. Yeah.
that's what I want for others. It's like I don't want people to be required to come to me to help them. Like that's why I'm doing these private podcasts to teach people how to do this for themselves.
So
Because
good.
then you feel empowered. And anytime you have that moment where you're feeling the fear, you're feeling, the emotional drain because of money or just not enoughness, like now you can
Mhm.
start to unravel it and reframe it for yourself.
That is so good. That makes sense. So what in all of this have you learned, I guess, about yourself? and
Mhm.
others, I guess, going back and forth as you teach and grow, you know, when you're doing this work?
Yeah, I think I've learned about myself. I really like the shock factor, right? Like because I like to shock people out of their comfort zone in a
That, yeah.
positive way, right? It's like I want to like build so much gap of like where
Hmm.
you're thinking now in terms of vision and build it into so much more possibility where it feels scary. I want it to feel that way because that's the best way we can start to actually pinpoint and notice like, oh, there is a big fear here. And
Yeah.
it's amplified when I talk about like very audacious things, but it's happening every day on a smaller scale. So if we can
Yeah.
start to unravel the small moments where you're at the grocery store and you like have a moment where it's like, oh, do I have enough money to pay for groceries? Like, and that
Hmm.
fear comes up. It's like, okay,
Exactly.
let's tackle it at that stage versus, how am I going to make $100,000 or $1 million or whatever the thing is.
That is so true. That is so true. So has it changed your perspective in any of this, like starting off and how you're doing now? Has your perspective on money changed, or has it grown, I want to say, bigger, or is it just a newness for you, or how do you, I guess?
Mm. Yeah, I feel like it's evolved. Like
Mm,
when I first started, it was more of like financial planning and very logistical, very logical. Now I feel like it's evolved into what is wealth consciousness? What is the
mm,
consciousness around money? How
exactly.
do I get into the frequency of money? And that's where, being more of leaning towards the abundance mentorship is more potent in my mind because
Hmm.
I can teach you budgeting all day long. I can teach you how to invest all day long, but that's not what's going to actually have you feel good about money and feel good about actually playing in the possibility that what you dream of is actually possible
That
and
is
could
so
become
true.
real.
That is so true. Do you feel like your community and influences around you can affect your mindset, you know, especially for women regarding money and how you perceive money and how you take in money?
Yeah. Like on a micro scale and macro, like micro in your own family, right? I'm working with a
Hmm.
client right now. The family dynamics are that her father growing up didn't have much money. Now he has a lot of money. And so as a child, she experienced like if she was ever to ask for something, she
Hmm.
would be kind of shunned or unloved if she asked for things related to money, like, oh, we don't have
Hmm.
enough money. Please don't ask for
Yeah.
money type of mentality. And that is translated even into, adulthood with her dynamic with her father. And it's the same thing. Don't ask for too much. Don't ask for anything. Right.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so it's
Yeah.
really fascinating to unravel that because that within her brings about this not enoughness conversation of, okay, I can't ask for support or help or anything because I will be shunned or unloved if I do.
Yes.
And so then that connection is lost in translation and gets misconstrued in communication. So, like, we're unraveling that for her because that then applies to how she relates to her spouse and how they relate to
Exactly.
money, right? And so on and so forth.
That is so true. So, I guess looking ahead on that, what would you like to see concerning mental health, women in mental health with their cash and just in general as the whole envelope? What would you like to see um,
Yeah.
basically coming about?
I would love, like on a macro scale, more women to get together and like have money dates. I think that'd be fun, where it's like you actually
Mhm.
sit and have a glass of wine or your drink and chat about money. And not from a place of comparison. This would be the hard part, right? But from a
Mhm.
place of, how can we expand each other in the endeavor of receiving more? And being in that kind of receptive mode around it because it's not about the hardness, the making of the money, the success of money. It's about how can I actually allow myself to channel more, receive more, and be in
Mhm.
that frequency of it. And how can I surround myself with other women who want that too? And
Document.
it's like I've at this point for myself created that in
Mhm.
small circles, but it's few and far between because the conversations I'm having at that capacity trigger a lot of women. It's like, we're going to
Yeah,
talk
it
about
would.
what? Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
You're supposed to
like,
keep that hidden.
yeah, so it's like we got to first get around the trigger points, right? And the limitations, and then just get to neutral first.
That is so good. So, in that, how do you measure your personal growth in relation to your mental health around money? And do you have any specific milestones or achievements that stand out to you regarding it?
Yeah. There's a couple I have like kind of in mind that really like unlocked some things. When I so probably gonna be like out of an order of a timeline, but there was a milestone when I was day trading. So as I was traveling, one of my sources of income, main income, was day trading. So just
Mhm.
trading as I was able to while traveling. And I was following a mentor, and when she hit $1 million in a day for a trade, like she made $1 million in one day, I was like
Mhm.
mind blown. Like if that is possible, like anything is possible, really. And she's a teacher, like she doesn't come from any type of special background. And I was like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it because I've been in finance, like I have more experience than she does. So as I was learning how to day trade, I hit a milestone of making $24,000 in a day. And I was like, and it was easy. This was, again, this was not like rocket science. And I was like, dang, I wish more women would give themselves the opportunity to learn something
Mhm.
like this because it's actually not difficult. What is difficult is the emotional regulation around money. It's
That is true.
managing the fear and the greed around money. That is the hard part. And truthfully, women are better in tune with that than men are. That's why we actually make more money when we invest. When we give ourselves the opportunity to invest, we do better. But yeah, women won't even like give themselves the opportunity to learn. They don't think it, they don't think they can do it.
Mhm.
They don't believe it's possible, right? And so they're not even giving up themselves the, at bats to try. So that was a big milestone for me because it was like boom, boom, like she did it. I was in her program for 3 months. I did it in, my own capacity, but it was like, wow, okay, this is gangbusters. And then another milestone was in real estate. So I had purchased a property and then sold it about 5 years later and, generated about 150,000 of, cash received back. And I was like, wow, also easy. Like I just owned
Yeesh.
a house, right? And so it was just like, my father's in real estate, so of course he's told me my whole life, like real estate's the way to go, but I didn't, fully believe him. And then when I did the active process of owning the real estate, investing in it, and selling it, I was like, okay, I get it now. Like again, another asset that once you have, utilized and, given time to grow, can also produce like massive amounts of income and
Love
wealth.
that.
So those are two big expansive ones. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, it does.
Okay, cool.
So, for at the end, well, I guess this will be
Yeah,
the last question because I had a million of them. So,
yeah,
in all of that, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling with their mental health around money, around how they get out of the box, and basically looking to prioritize themselves, their monies, and basically take away the past crap, that they've come with?
yeah. I think that's where like it usually helps someone just get unstuck is usually the words
Hmm.
that they use. Like I just need to get unstuck from this. And so it's baby steps. I think when you're in a hole with money,
Hmm.
it feels really hard to get out of the hole.
Oh,
And
yes.
so really putting blinders on in terms of what is the literal one next best step to get me out of the hole and the next step and the next step and not worrying about like some of these things I'm talking about with expanding with money, right? It's like, okay, what is simply where my capacity is now and not focus on anything else. And so for an example, like say you're $50,000 in debt and
Hmm.
you don't make a lot of money, like the extra that you're, putting towards it feels like it's not doing anything.
Hmm.
It's really about figuring out how can I, and those types of questions of how can this be possible and how can I do it quicker. And so when you start to think in opportunity versus in lack, because Otherwise, that hole feels just like you're never going to get out of it.
That's true.
It's,
That's true.
you know, the things like, can I get a new job? It's being a little bit audacious with your asks too. It's like you are stuck, so you have to do something different in order to get unstuck. And that
That's
might
true.
mean look for a new job, even though that's uncomfortable. It might mean ask for help, ask for someone to support you with paying off the debt because it's, high interest. It could mean, okay, we get a second job for the next year and just knock it out, not knock out the debt, right? Like
Yeah,
we have to move and take action to change the scenario of stuckness.
that's
But
true.
it's thinking in the how can I versus the can't do this, can't do that. That's where the limitation comes in our own language and processing of solutioning for
Mhm.
something.
That makes so much sense. Oh, thank you so much for all this. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, Instagram is the best place at Abundance Queen Life. I'm hanging out there.
Awesome. Did you have any new projects or anything that you were working on that you want to share?
I have a private podcast. It's called Magic Captured. It's 55 days of playing impossibility. So that's a really fun thing I've been setting up. It's all set up now finally. Um, you basically invest $55 to get 55 days of coaching for me in abundance. So I've got different
Mm.
episodes all built out. I've designed it to be super affordable. So, by high one-on-one prices, you don't have to pay. You can just listen to the audios and work through it day by day.
That is awesome. Everyone go and check her out. That is so awesome. Thank you for joining me today.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
That was so good. As usual, the liner notes are at the bottom, or you can click the link in the bio to find out everything about our guests. See you next week.